at the first instance, if people are not excited and jumping with joy, then it's going to be a very painful thing to sell to anybody. We started this company with a clear vision that it will be a global payments platform and not just an India only payments platform. There is only a passion that will actually make you choose a startup over a grown up, because in here your salary is going to be probably lower when you start. You don't have a great cafeteria, you don't have great lifestyle. If you continue the same trajectory, we may not have a place for you in this company.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Accelerator podcast. Firstly, a big thank you for your overwhelming and inspiring support. If you enjoy our conversations, please do subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments. We would love to hear your thoughts. Today, I'm thrilled to have on our show Mr. Srivatsan Sridhar, founder and CEO of Skydo, a fintech startup in the area of transforming cross-border payments for small and medium enterprises. His journey has been very inspiring. He's worked with companies like Rupeek and Ola, and I'm really happy and pleased to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Srivatsan.
Thank you, Shailesh. Glad to be here and looking forward to our interaction.
Oh, great. So I'm going to dive right in and ask you what really inspired you to get into the fintech domain in the first place.
So I have been, quite bullish and quite positive about financial services in general ever since my consulting days, where I spent 6 years in McKinsey, mostly doing financial services work. And one observation I had about this space is that India is a supply-starved market on every aspect of financial services, be it lending, investment advice, insurance, anything you can think of, any aspect of financial services. The country is just growing, and this disposable incomes are rising, and we are actually seeing that phase where people are moving away from merely surviving or subsisting to having dreams. From a personal point of view, also, people want to have a better life, have a more secure life, invest, make returns on that investment, spend, go global, travel, have a better future for their children, invest in their education. So basically, we are into that phase. And obviously, this is the phase where a range of financial products and services are really required for people. So I have this view that financial services is an evergreen industry, at least for the next foreseeable future in India. That's the core, and obviously there are multiple ways to get into financial services. I could have been a consultant and continued there, or I could have joined. A lot of my consulting friends actually moved on to venture capital, private equity, mutual funds, investment banks, even commercial banks. So I could have done that, but I also have this entrepreneurial bug right from my childhood. So I just put the two together, I would say.
So would it be right to say that working with companies like Rupeek and Ola really help you kind of hone your skills in the area of transformation and scale up, and that really kind of also really helped you build Skydo?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the Ola experience was very interesting, because when I decided to move into the technology world, before that I was running my own, family-owned business after McKinsey and before Ola for several years, and I was well set in that space. But I also realized that if I had to start something of my own in the technology space, I first need to work in a tech company, understand how it works. I can't assume that I would know everything from day one. Different people have different ways of doing this. Many would suggest that you just dive in and then figure it out on the way. But I was already a little more than 10 years experienced in my career at that point. So I felt like I'm no longer a 25-year-old who just jump in and learn stuff. It's good to learn and then thoughtfully start something. So I look for I would say, a relatively straightforward path of entering into the technology world.
Hmm.
So Ola provided me with that path because it was already a scaled startup, early stages.
Correct.
Whether this company would work or not was no longer there.
Hmm.
By the time I joined that company, it was a household name, and millions of people were using it. So there,
Correct.
that role gave me a sense of how do large organizations in a fast moving dynamic technology space work.
Hmm.
How are roles similar as well as different from traditional businesses here? How do you work with and assemble teams of diverse talents, age groups, and skill sets towards a common goal? And also, how do you really respond to very new things? Because as we were trying to do whatever we were supposed to do at Ola, which was mostly growth and profitability and so on, we also
Hmm.
constantly saw innovation happening around us, right? So there was the whole bike taxi piece was just beginning to play out. Similarly,
Right.
self-drive bike rentals, self-drive car rentals, the industry was going through its own change. Uh,
Hmm.
so how do you then transform an organization while responding to constantly changing environment was very interesting. How do you work cross functionally with leaders who are all good in what they do but still have to come together
Yeah.
and achieve a common goal? So all of that was quite interesting. um, yeah, I would say it really helped me land well into the technology world.
Okay. So you mentioned you started with consulting, then you moved into your family business, and you spent, I would believe, some years there. How many years did you spend with the family?
Yeah, 6 years in consulting, 7 years in my family business.
Wow. So was it easy to get out of the family business? Obviously, there were aspirations. The reason to move out probably would have been to build something much bigger and scalable. Was it easy, difficult? How did you manage that? And was it a conscious decision to get in back into corporate so that you can then go ahead and build your own startup?
Yeah, it was a conscious decision, and it was definitely challenging to even make that decision. I think making that decision was the more challenging part. Convincing
Hmm.
myself, obviously, that this is the right decision and I'm doing it for the right reasons was the challenging part.
Hmm.
Once
Hmm.
that was clear, then convincing everybody around, other stakeholders involved from the rest of my family to my business stakeholders, etc., was relatively easier because once you are clear what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, and it comes from a good place and it's a
Correct.
thought through decision, then you always build the conviction and strength to be able to deal with other people and their objections and challenges. So that's what happened in my case as well. And yes, it was a conscious decision to not just jump into something unknown right away, but spend a few years in figuring out what to do. Like I said, I
Hmm.
was already in my mid 30s. I had a family, I had young children, so I also wanted to be financially, clear that when I started up, I wouldn't have to worry about cash flow for a few years. I would be financially stable, and my family could continue to enjoy similar lifestyle for a few years. Because when you start up, you should be prepared for any outcome. The company can
Right.
be shut down. The company can shut down after a few years of trying, and the company can succeed, and the company can wildly succeed. All possible
Absolutely.
spectrum of outcomes are possible,
Absolutely.
and I wanted to be ready for it. So that's why it was a thought through decision to enter into the sphere. One was the safety aspect, but secondly, and more importantly, it was also for me to soak into the environment so that I could also start ideating. Because if you're
Hmm.
completely in a different world, it's very difficult to ideate in a new world. Um,
Right.
uh, like if you're never into making films and none of your family members are in filmmaking or anything related to that, you can't
Correct.
suddenly come in and bring something new. Once in a while some genius like that might come in, but in general, if you see
Yeah.
people who have succeeded in any particular domain, you will see that they have some lineage, some history, some background, and so on. So I wanted to develop a few years of that environment and
Hmm.
background that would allow me to be able to probably connect with people, connect with investors, connect with potential team members and co-founders, uh,
Hmm.
you know and so on. And I think all of those things happened in my few years of
Okay.
at Ola and Rupeek before I started up. So I would say yes, it was a conscious choice, and it also panned out probably even better than I had imagined.
Oh, wow. That's great. So, talk us through how did you pick the niche of transforming cross-border payments for MSMEs?
So MSME is something that is close to my heart because my family business also started as an MSME. It's no longer an MSME. It's still, I would say, it's more an ME now than an MSME. It's a medium
Mm-hmm.
price. But that's what I've grown up with, and all our suppliers in our family business are MSMEs. So I'm really intimately familiar with small businesses and the kind of struggles they go through.
Correct.
Similarly, my McKinsey work with financial services institutions was also coincidentally a lot to do with SMBs. So I did
Mm-hmm.
retail and SME lending most of my time. I supported NBFCs and banks in mostly, vehicle loans, commercial vehicle loans, uh,
Okay.
SMBs, and working capital credit, and so on. So I would say most of my career I've actually dealt with SMEs,
Mm-hmm.
and I truly understand how they are trying hard to make ends meet. My experience in Ola and Rupeek was not with MSMEs in particular, but also with segments of population which are self-employed and entrepreneurial. So Rupeek
Correct.
lends against gold primarily to business use cases. So most of
Mm-hmm.
its customers are professionals like doctors, people who want to open fitness studios or pharmacies or things like that,
Right.
who struggle to get formal bank loans and therefore have to go for some of these other modes of getting loans.
Mm.
So customer intimacy was something that has been a common thread for me throughout. Secondly, having been an importer and exporter, problem intimacy was also like something very deep for me. In my family business, I have done exports to multiple countries. I have imported machinery and equipment and raw material from many countries. And I know that I didn't know anything about these things. I didn't know how to save money, or I didn't even know what happened in the background when these things.
Okay.
So that was something that stayed with me. That hey, how is it so difficult to pay somebody in another country or receive payments from another country while it is
Mm.
almost a non-issue in a domestic setting, right?
Correct.
So these were some of the, I would say, underlying ideas or idea stores or idea reservoir that was there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was my co-founder's experience in payments that helped me tap into this. So
Okay.
you need a catalyst to convert whatever exists, right? So the catalyst was
Correct.
my co-founder Movin's payments experience. So he was actually head of payments product at PhonePe, and
Mm-hmm.
he was there at a very interesting time when their transactions and their volumes and everything was like really scaling up massively. And so he truly believed in the ability of technology to simplify payments. And he also saw a niche where, while underlying rails are still bank rails, the way to move money has remained the same over several years. But solving for specific customer needs by creating interfaces that are one layer above the underlying rails, which makes
Mm.
it easy, convenient, cost-effective, and compliant for customers, is something that he appreciated deeply while building, payments product for PhonePe. So I think
Okay.
in our ideation journey, these two things came together. My own experience in MSMEs and international payments.
Right.
This experience building a payments platform. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so we just put these two things together to finally come up with what we came up with.
Wow. So what does Skydo do, or how does it work?
So Skydo helps small businesses, create global virtual accounts all over the world. These
Mm-hmm.
accounts are tagged to your Indian account. So
Okay.
by doing this, we make international payment into a simple local payment for the sender. Because now
Okay.
senders don't have to pay you into your India account; they just have to pay you into your virtual account for that country. So for the sender, it becomes simple and costless. Similarly, for the receiver, again, all of this complexity of international wire transfer and extra FX markup and all of those things are eliminated because Skydo has received these payments in these network of international virtual accounts. Skydo brings that money into India in bulk, converts it into Indian rupees using an Indian bank, and then deposits that money into into the exporter's bank account. All of this without any involvement from the exporter, without any challenges in terms of tracking the payment and tracing where the payment went or what got deducted where, etc. With zero deductions all through, right?
Okay.
We also give customers the benefit of live FX rates, so we also don't have a markup on the FX. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
we made what I initially mentioned, which is an international payment as simple as a local payment.
Got it.
And for all of this, we charge customers an upfront transaction fee for every transaction, which is
Mm-hmm.
not related to the dollar rate or FX margin or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a simple number that you know upfront and you know when you're going to get the payment. So that's how we've simplified and I would say revolutionized this age-old way of moving money.
Wonderful. So you set this up in 22, right?
Yes, we started it in 22.
Okay. So obviously there would have been some challenges in setting up, building a team. Can you talk us through how was the initial, let's say, the 1 year or 2 years of the journey?
Yeah. I would say the second year was far more challenging than the first year. The first year was almost, a dream come true debut or a dream start.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Because see, we had done our homework well. Both of us are,
Mm-hmm.
guys with good resumes, good pedigree, good list of companies that we have worked in, and
Correct.
with excellent network in the startup world.
Mm-hmm.
So finding the initial backers to fund us, etc., was relatively easier. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, we did everything that anybody else would do, which is go pitch to dozens of investors,
Correct.
get rejected by most of them, and then the few who said yes, work with them to show insight and depth and progress in the few months that we interacted with them, and then finally one of them said yes, and that but that was still, I would say, fairly straightforward, because I know that there are much smarter entrepreneurs out there who don't have the benefit of the pedigree or the experience or the networks that we have,
Correct.
who might have found it harder to raise capital. So I would say, in comparison with what most founders experience, we had a relatively easy start. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
then, because we also were able to raise a reasonable amount of money, and for the same reasons of pedigree, experience, and network, we were also able to
Mm-hmm.
put together a few outstanding individuals in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
when we started. So I would say, more or less till about July, August of 2022, which is the first 6 to 8 months of time from the initial ideation to getting the first 4 5 team members. It was
Mm-hmm.
almost like too good to be true kind of situation.
Okay. Okay.
Then reality started hitting. In fact, in July, we almost thought that we should return the money to investors because there is no idea here. There's nothing to, no business to be built. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because we had toured multiple export clusters, business clusters in May, June, July, and
Okay.
uh, we went up north to like Panipat and Ludhiana and Moradabad, then Ahmedabad and Surat in the west, some
Okay.
cities and towns in Tamil Nadu, in Karur and so on in the south. So trying to figure out what exporters actually need and what should our first product be. And wherever we went, while customers were like, yeah, that'll be useful, etc., nobody was like excited. Nobody said that, this will make my life significantly better than what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And, just like they say, you like something the best only when you first buy it. And then, eventually your liking for it only starts coming down. We felt like at the first instance, if people are not excited and jumping with joy, then, it's going to be a very painful thing to sell to anybody. So maybe this is not even such
Right.
a problem that we're trying to solve. So maybe we should just give back the money and go back and do some job. This was really how we
Okay.
felt in July of 22. Um, and then from there, the next 1 year was actually the struggle of realizing the 0 to 1. Because then we figured out that then a chance response to one of our tweets made us realize that there is a different customer segment for whom this is a very important problem. So,
Hmm.
Mohammed sent out a tweet saying, hey, we are solving for cross-border payments, and if anybody is having any challenges, we would love to talk to you. And a lot of people responded, and all of them were different from the kind of people we were going after. We were going after mostly manufacturing guys and factory owners and so on. Whereas the kind of guys
Hmm.
who were responding were, these IT dev shops, digital marketing agencies, software firms,
Interesting.
uh,
Okay.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And then we realized that, services industries are even lesser well served than manufacturing guys. At least in manufacturing guys there were a few advantages that they had, which is the owner did not have to sit and do work every day in terms of making their product, right? He had the time to think about finances, think about
Correct.
better way of optimizing things, and probably had a finance and accounting team which would solve these problems. uh,
Right.
Plus, mostly manufacturing companies had exports as an addition to domestic business. Whereas
Hmm.
services, these companies were born to do global work. They had no
Right.
business model if they were not exporting. Secondly, the
Mm-hmm.
owner or the founder themselves were actually spending most of their time in delivery. So they were themselves
Correct.
writing code or managing projects or managing teams or liaising with customers on delivery. So they had
Hmm.
little to no time to actually focus on optimizing peripheral things to their core business like payments and so on.
Correct.
And banks also did not find this segment lucrative enough or large enough to dedicated to serve them in a dedicated fashion.
Right.
So then we felt encouraged. We felt like, okay, here is a segment we can serve. We don't know yet how large it is going to be, but at
Hmm.
least it's not curtains for us. There is someone to build for.
Okay. Okay.
And then the next few months were all about figuring out what is the simplest product that we can create on day one to serve them. Uh,
Hmm.
then figuring out a bank partnership, that was not easy because banks obviously are large institutions, and for them, there are dozens of people like us approaching them every day for partnerships.
Correct.
So,
Hmm.
so getting a large bank to say yes to partner with us was a big challenge. And then using that bank, we actually had to approach the regulator to get approval for being a payments processor. So all of this
Hmm.
took a few months and gave us a lot of learning into things that we never knew or understood till then. And
Okay.
finally, in November of 22, we did our first transaction.
Wow.
So that was those few months were a lot of uncertainty, knowing whether there is something to build, etc., etc. Then the next six
Okay.
months was more uncertainty, which is okay. A few friends and friends of friends have tried us out now, but is this real? When
Correct.
we go to a stranger and when we pitch to a stranger, will that stranger actually want to use us, right?
Hmm.
That was a challenge. And also, the first couple of months during the pilot, we had waived our fees. We said anybody who's trying us during the pilot, we are going to offer it free of charge because we are also learning and we might make mistakes. And thank you for helping us. So the real moment was when we had to sell to strangers and when we had to actually start charge fees, right? Is someone
Correct.
going to pay us? And then and we said at that point, let us sell the first and bring on board the first 100 customers before hiring a sales team, because if we can't sell, then there is no business.
Correct.
So those early days of like I would say December, January, February, early 2023 was a time when we went on LinkedIn, reached out to unknown folks, told them who we are, what we did, got rejected several times, then pitched to few people and converted and so
Hmm.
on. So those were again difficult days. And then ultimately, when we crossed about 150, users, that's when we hired our first, sales team members. Uh,
Okay.
and they were then able to, slowly amplify our efforts, right? So reach out to more number of people and
Correct.
gradually increased. Then we said, let's not do any paid marketing till we at least at 500, 600 customers, because
Okay.
paying money is easy, but if we don't have a few hundred customers, then it's not a real product market fit.
Right.
So till that point, when in August of 23, where we finally crossed the 500 customer mark, and we said, now let's spend some money and get some ads going. I would say that period between July 22 to July August of 23. That 1 year I would say
Okay.
was the toughest year, where we really had to prove to ourselves that this is not a paper idea, but it's a real idea for which somebody would actually pay money.
Wonderful. And so where are we now?
The last 12 months since that time when we started advertising and so on has been quite good. We have grown more than 10x. So at that point we had
Wow.
less than 1,000 customers. Today we have more than 10,000 customers. Uh,
Wonderful.
we process close to $200 million of payments per annum now. That's the run rate.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I would say truly, at least for this segment, which is the technology services or the services exporter segment, we are a well recognized payment service provider. People do consider us as a real option in comparison with, let's say, a
Hmm.
bank, a wire transfer, or any global payment app like a PayPal or a Wise, etc. So we are there
Yeah,
in the consideration now every time when somebody thinks about a payment solution in this segment.
that's great. That's great. And how has the team evolved as in terms of the size of the organization?
Yeah. So, like I said, initially, our entire team was just product engineering and design because that's what we needed
Correct.
to put the product out. We had almost no sales team till we got to a certain scale.
Hmm.
Today, it's a little different. Things are different because now that we know the template and we know who the customer is, etc. Now it is about scaling up the sales organization.
Correct.
So today our sales team is about 20 people strong,
Wow.
right? In fact, if I include sales and marketing, growth, sales, marketing, all of that, like everybody who's involved in
Hmm.
bringing top of funnel, converting that, and managing the
Correct.
accounts, that would be roughly half of the team. So about 25 out of the 50 odd people we have is actually
Hmm.
growth and sales.
Okay.
Then the next largest contingent is product engineering and design. All of them put together about, again, about 12, 13 people. So these two form the bulk of the team. And then everybody else is like 1 to 2 people each, which is operations and customer support, compliance, payments partnerships, finance, and so on.
Okay. So this process of starting with, let's say, just about 4 or 5 people and then moving on to around 50 people, what's been your philosophy in terms of one, what kind of people to hire and how, in terms of building a team? And I would also love to know what kind of a culture are you trying to build at Skydo?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that brought Moin and I together is actually our shared philosophy of how we would like to be treated as employees,
Hmm.
how we did not like being treated as employees in some of the places,
Okay. Correct.
and therefore how we should treat employees, right? So it's a
Hmm.
very core part of the two of our entrepreneurial aspirations. In fact, I think we agreed far more on what kind of company to build, even
Hmm.
before we kind of got into what exact business to build, right?
Okay.
um, so that way it's first of all it's a relief that I have a co-founder with whom I share a very common and shared understanding of what kind of culture we should build.
Correct.
So I think the 2 3 words, if I have to describe what our culture stands for, one is ownership. Second is transparency,
Okay.
and third is you know direct feedback, and fourth is I would say uh, being flat or being a meritocracy, right? So these are the 3 4 things that we hold dear.
Hmm.
So we expect people to own what they do completely. Everybody says this, but we also ensure that we don't get into the nitty-gritties, right?
Correct.
Having this philosophy is, only half the job done. The remaining half is actually making this philosophy come to life, where you truly have to let people succeed or fail with their own ideas. You can't say, I
Absolutely.
want you to own, and then, you can't keep micromanaging every small thing.
Correct.
So by design, we are, hands off. We expect teams to pull us when they need, rather than keep pushing. And whenever we push, it is mainly because we see that the team has not seen something, or the team is not aware of something, and that is when we get involved. We try our best to stay out, right? Then second is, this direct feedback is very important. Instead of varnishing everything or using an HR to give feedback, which is tough, um,
Hmm.
etc. We honestly and directly give feedback, and also encourage teams to receive feedback in the same spirit, as well as give to each other, as well as to give to us, feedback that is there.
Correct. Correct.
This takes a lot of practicing, because Indians by definition are a little bit, hierarchical in their mindset. Even if you as a founder is not hierarchical, the teams working for you think that, "Oh, how can I say this?" and so on. And there's a lot of hesitancy.
Correct.
You have
Absolutely.
to truly, like, really, really encourage people to speak their mind repeatedly and again and again.
Absolutely.
Of course, you can be very kind, very nice about it, etc. But saying it as it is a very important gift that you can give people. So
True.
that's something that we try our best to practice. We spend massive amounts of time doing our performance evaluations. So we for the leadership team as well as for the front line, we, wherever possible, we have very clear metrics that show people how they have performed. Uh,
Hmm.
and wherever qualitative feedback is there, we actually write it down in as parameterized a way as possible. Uh,
Right.
this is something I've loved in my McKinsey days, where feedback used to be detailed, specific, and very actionable. And I've tried to
Correct.
put that together here. So we write
Hmm.
detailed notes for everybody. We spend multiple rounds talking, and we do our very best to de-link compensation and evaluation.
Hmm.
This is another major problem, right? Everybody is
Can you elaborate on that? How do you de-link compensation with the evaluation?
so we've created a simple framework that we everybody should be paid whatever that role is worth it in the market, right? So that's the
Okay.
simple way we have kept compensation. It's very difficult to implement, but
So,
uh,
but how do you? So, I get that point. So, that's at the point of hiring. But let's say at the end of the year, you've done a
every
performance
every year also,
evaluation.
that's at every point of time this should be true. So let's
Hmm.
say it is an annual evaluation of a certain leader, right?
Right.
Let's say he's head of product for you. So we look at him and say, hey, if person X were not here today and we have to hire this talent from the market, what would we be paying for this skill set and this
Okay.
activity right now? Right,
Got it.
that amount is like vastly different from what that person is being paid today for whatever reason. Then it is our job as a company to pay that. Initially what we thought was we should be slightly below market in terms of cash, because we are
Hmm.
very early stage, we should conserve cash and give ESOPs. Now that we are 2 years into the business, almost 2.5 years into the business, we feel like that gap can narrow down a little bit. We can still be at par. We don't have to be top 10% or top quartile in the market, but we have to
Correct.
be at least median above in every role, and that's what we
Okay.
aspire. That for leadership, we are aspiring to be above median, and for frontline and more younger colleagues, we want to be in the top quartile as a paymaster.
Okay.
That's our simple philosophy. So, a person who might be rated poorly, I wouldn't say poorly, but let's say rated average, right,
Hmm.
might still be underpaid. These are two separate things. So, you first have to
Got it.
pay that person fairly, but you also have to give, very, very clear, very actionable feedback and say that, hey, I'm giving you a 30% raise this time simply because you are underpaid compared to the talent, the same talent that I have to hire from the market if I have to replace you. So this is what
Hmm.
your skill set deserves in the market, and this is what I'm paying you. Okay. Conversation one over. Now, conversation two. Here is how